let's kick it off. We got a good number of people in here. Let's
Okay.
get started. So we are here for the second episode in our Adapt or Die webinar series. My name is Charlie Bathgate, and my guest today is the one and only Ronchero Friedman. Say hello, Ronch.
What's up? Thank God there's only one.
Yeah. There's only one. Thank God for us. Thank God for the world. If I call him Ronch, it's because his handle in our community platform is Ronchero. His name is Ron Friedman. So if you're new to what we're doing and you hear me throwing out Ron or Ronch or Ronchero, all the same person, this man sitting in front of your screen right here. And I dragged Ronch on today to talk about some of his misery, some of the pain that he's been through, some of the times that his back has been up against the wall and the walls were closing in, and he was just like, what the fuck? How am I going to get out of this? And the reason we're talking about it is because a lot of traders are having that experience right now. A lot of traders are having that moment. It's been happening a lot this year, and then certainly a lot more in the past couple of weeks. And whenever we do a lead up like this for the Sangucci Master Course, whenever we do a series, we always want to make it as topical as possible, want to try and help, as many people as possible. And what we're doing is we're just trying out each of the educators in the Master Course, and we're talking about their experience. These guys have incredible depth of expertise. They've been through every single type of market cycle you can think of. They have, they've blown up accounts, they've rebuilt themselves financially, psychologically, emotionally, metaphysically, grammatically, all of the above, and they're here still trading at the top of the game and kicking ass. So that's why we're having these conversations with them. I'm going to do my plug for the Master Course right now at the beginning. The next Master Course starts June 6th. That's the next live Master Course, starts June 6th. You can go to sangucci.com/MC and learn more about it, sign up for it. We are doing a promo right now. We got a bunch of questions last time around. You doing a promo or not? Yes, we are. We're announcing, this is the first time we're announcing it. So we're going to do a $500 discount for the next 10 people who sign up at that rate. You can get that discount if you use Master 500 during checkout. And again, that'll save you $500 on the course. You can learn pretty much everything that we offer in the course on that Master Course page. The only thing that you're not going to see there is the mention of Lucci and Spencer's new crypto trading courses, which new Master Course members will get access to those as well. There's a beginner and an intermediate crypto trading course that is a new thing that we're rolling out, and new Master Course students are going to get access to that for free. So if you have any questions or anything like that, use the help chat at the bottom of the website, or shoot us an email, contact@sangucci.com, and go check that out, sangucci.com/MC. And I think that covers it. That covers the quick and dirty pitch. So let's get into the meat of it, Ronch. As I said, we're here, we're talking to you because you have so much fucking experience going through so many different types of challenges and difficulties. And I mean, I just want to start real quick. Like, what has been your experience trading in the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks? How's it been for you?
Okay, so I want to be careful about how I preface this because I listened to your last conversation with Jesus, right? And everybody has a different view and approach and how they trade it. And Jay's a guy who he just doesn't short, right? He's always looking for one type of setup, and this environment just has not given it to him. So, you can hear the frustration in his voice, and I know there's a lot of traders out there that maybe can't get to the other side of the trade, or keep looking at it and thinking, why isn't it doing what we think it's going to do? And I try to keep things as simple as possible, and I look for specific things, and the things that I look for have basically told me this is a downtrend, and I'm not going to try and fight the trend. There are going to be times in any trend where things go the opposite way, and you have to be prepared for that. I think probably the biggest thing for me is the willingness to be on both sides, but with a big picture in mind. And the big picture for me, based on the information that I have, is that anytime we pop in this environment, it's likely to be met with downside selling. So, we've been fortunate that we have in my room and this is something I typically don't do, and I had to adapt to do it. Typically, when it comes to downside, we're just looking for, I was taught elevator down, staircase back up, right? So, downtrends have usually been quick things. Well, this isn't quick, right? This is slow, and it's grinding, and it's painful. And in a way to help, when we were SPY like 440, I started buying out of the money protective puts with some time. And all I've done is just continue to roll them down. I mean, we're out to June 385 now. So that, from a big picture or a midterm picture, has just kept dollars rolling in, and then looking for shorter term scalp opportunities. And we're trying our best to just stack the money so that when this finally starts to settle down and it is over, that we can find the highest quality names that we don't have to do a ton of work on, and we can, ride that staircase back up. So for me, it's all about big picture, but then how do I bring it into a smaller term environment? So, long answer to a short question is we've actually been doing really well in this environment.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I obviously knew that was a sort of leading question. But you certainly, just because the past couple of weeks haven't been, super tough for you, doesn't mean that you haven't had those periods in the past. And I think it'd be helpful for our audience to hear you talk about a little bit of times when, you were super challenged and you were staring down the barrel of what you felt like, I don't know if I can do this, and I mean, when you think back on your career, like what was one of the most intense sort of feelings you had about your back being against the wall and you saying like, I have to do something, and I don't, or I'm not going to make it,
Yeah, I mean, post 9/11, I was long. My entire portfolio was long. There was not one bit of cash on the sidelines, and I was long options, and they were, I don't know, 30 days out or something like that, and it wiped me out because the market closed for what, 3 days, 4 days. I struggle to remember the exact things. I really have to go back and look. It's kind of a painful event.
Right.
And 4 days later, when the market opened back up, everything that I was in was, Yucca Flats after the blast, right? It was just gone, and, nay to return. That was incredibly difficult and put an incredible amount of stress on me personally, mentally. You start getting into that negative self-talk, and it's a hard feedback loop to break, especially if it accompanies something that's financially life-changing in the wrong direction for you and your family. And those are very difficult to bounce back from. When I finally did bounce back from that event, the next thing that smacked me in the face was the financial crisis in 2008-9, right? Yep. The reason I survived that, I hadn't learned anything to that point about protection and how I could have avoided that. The only reason I survived it was because shortly before it happened, I was going through a divorce, so everything had to be moved to cash, right? So I sidestepped that, not because I was
silver linings,
because of another really painful, difficult situation that I found myself in. But prior to 9/11 and in between, I blew up smaller accounts trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? And not even being able to find or cling to anything to identify what that was. And that's a sickening feeling, right? Not being able to figure out why, and even, trying to change things and make different, adjustments, and they're still not working. You're just like, I know nothing, the monkey at the keyboard, right? That was
Right. So then when you've been in those places and you found success, because you've been able to power through some of these circumstances and obviously get to a really high level. Like what did you do? What worked? How yeah.
So for me, it was I have just internally, I just have an engine that doesn't allow me to quit. And that's the same I mean, I've my whole life, like, whether it doesn't matter who it is, I've always been told, hey, you're too short to make this hockey team, right? You're not, you're not smart enough to to be in the market. This is for Ivy League kids or jackasses that went to Duke. I'm just teasing.
Well played. Well played.
But I just have that ability to take the pain. I remember when I was a kid, one of the very first things when I was playing hockey, and I was a really little guy, my aunt worked in the front office for the New York Rangers, and she supported one of the GM at the time was Rod Jobert, who was also a really famous hockey player from the Rangers back in the day. And when I was just a little dude, he pulled me aside and he was like, listen, he's like, the thing about this game is, in anything in life, is that when you feel completely depleted and exhausted, you reach down and you find a little bit more, and that's what gets you through. And that stuck with me. And that stuck with me. Yeah.
That's a big moment. I never heard that story. So somebody pulling you aside, obviously a big deal person pulling you aside.
Well, and because it wasn't a parent, right? It was like a legendary sports figure,
right?
Who took the time to talk to a snot-nosed kid, right?
Right. So you're saying that even at the sort of depths of your despair, where you're pulling at straws, you're trying everything you can think of to make the needle move in the right direction, it's not going, you still had in the back of your mind a belief like, I can do this. It's just a matter of persistence.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you're going through some of those times, it's not every day that you have that feeling, right? There are periods where you're like, I can't do it, right? And you coast, and it's just like nothingness.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. And then finally you get sick of the malaise, right? And you're like, let's go. Like, come on, you're just gonna sit here and wither, or are you gonna pick yourself up and do something, right?
Right. And so that at that point, it's just sort of like inertia in a way. You're like, I'm just not going to stop myself, but I'm going to keep floating forward, even though there's nothing propelling me forward right now.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you had this like level of self-belief and this fight in you. You're a fighter, obviously, just like what you talked about, that's sort of like ingrained in your DNA. I mean, what about like your process of evaluating tactically what you're doing, right? I mean, there's one thing to have self-belief, but there's another thing to be like, I literally don't know how to make money in these markets. Like, I don't think I know what to do. Do you, I mean, is it, I know obviously you were mentored by a market maker, finding Lucci and learning tape from him was pivotal for you. Is it a matter of adding a really important sort of arrow to your quiver, like building out your toolkit?
So to be back in the day, right? I had been through, broker training, Series 7, 63, 8, 24, but it doesn't teach you anything about the business. It teaches you operationally how things work and what your credentials are, so that you are legally allowed to participate in that activity. But it doesn't teach you things that you need to know and understand to be able to have the potential to be successful in that environment, right? And whether that's you're a long-term, mid-term, or a short-term type of investor or trader, you don't learn that through those things. So I thought that was going to be an opportunity for me to learn those things. And while it gave me the basics, I still wasn't learning, and I didn't understand why. And I went through, like a lot of people do, I can't even count how many educational courses on options, on futures, on, just the market in general. I mean, like sitting down at, the weekly meetings and at your branch office for, when I was like just investing through Schwab and stuff like that. Like I threw myself into all of that stuff because I was like, I'm missing something and I don't know what it is. And I went through countless courses like that. And I still do it today. Like if I see somebody on Twitter or whatever it is, and they've got something to offer, first of all, I want to go in and I want to see if what they're talking about is relevant. Can I learn something from them? Can I add it? And there's a lot of crap, and you have to sift through a lot of crap. And when you're in that situation and all you've been getting is crap and you haven't found anything that is working, you start to lose faith in that system, right?
Yep.
So I was able, over a long period of time to find a few things that worked. And then finally, after the market came in 2008, I was able to find, somebody who was a market maker. And I was like, wow, like I'm finally going to get to learn from somebody who's who's been working behind the curtain, as opposed to everybody else who's on the other side who thinks they know what's happening. That was a major shift for me.
Yeah, I mean, and how would you contrast learning from somebody who had been in the trenches and been at that level versus, kind of the other educational exposure you were getting, which was, I don't want to call it academic, but just more like sort of theoretical, or not people who've really been living it, doing it.
So are you asking me what I thought the difference was between the two, like individual or personality types, or how they went about it?
Not necessarily personality types, but like, you're sitting down next to this guy, this market maker, and you're like, oh, this is different. Like what sort of flipped that bell where you're like, this is something different?
Well, mostly because he was able to explain things in a way that made sense. Just from
that helps.
I walked in off of the street, and he was able to explain things in a layman's way. He was able to explain something very complicated in a very layman's way, to where I was like, oh shit, that's what all these other people have been trying to say, but can't communicate it to me in a way that makes any fucking sense.
Right.
And then it was okay, you've explained this, why does this happen? Now you've explained this, why does this happen? And then it was like it was super interesting, because the type of training was something that I was used to, from hockey, from the military, from lacrosse. Like it's disciplined and it's rigorous, and it's requires a pace, right? And you've got to push to keep up. And It was very much like that, but it was also in bites that I could understand. He was able to take complicated concepts and put it into simple bites, and then all of a sudden you start to see, and the stuff starts to make sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how much in finance people hide behind jargon and huge words that basically half the time they don't even know what the fuck they are. They just heard it repeated by the guy above them on the totem pole. And when you can find somebody who can break things down in simple language and simple terms and explain it to you like a 5-year-old, that's very, follow that person, stay close.
Yeah, I always tell people to talk to me as if I were a golden retriever, and that's always helpful, and I can understand them.
Right. So, I mean, for you, like for traders, I know you've seen a lot of traders, and you've known a lot of traders in your life. I mean, for the people who maybe were, they were doing well for a couple of years, and then they crap out, they crash and burn, market regime changes, they can't, they can't adapt, they can't stick with it. What do you feel like are some of the common denominators for those people who don't adapt, who can't turn the corner, versus people who can, who do? Like, what do you?
I mean, I'm looking at some of the stuff that's in the chat, and what Lourdes has said is is kind of right on, is being open-minded. If you're open-minded to the fact that you could potentially be wrong, you stand a chance of being able to to make a change, right? If you're closed-minded, and to no disrespect to anybody who's been here for the last decade, but the last decade has been a pretty straightforward formula of the market pulls back, you buy it, and it goes back up. This is different than what other people have seen, and they're trying to fight what they see. It's almost like they're not accepting what's happening. It's an interest rate rising environment. There are all sorts of, global tensions. There are all sorts of items that are uncertainties. And then when technical things show up and show you a story, you can either choose to believe the story and follow the storyline, or you can reject the storyline and fight it. And I think that there are a lot of traders that just continue to fight it and are kind of lost right now as to, well, the minute that I stop fighting it and go with it is the minute that it's going to change and go against me. I think that that's a mindset that takes a hold in a lot of cases. Yeah.
I mean, how do you keep the balance that you keep, which is, on the one hand, you firmly embrace, I don't know shit. You're super humble, but on the other hand, you have a lot of confidence. You've earned your track record. You have, as Chris Cady always likes to say, you have confidence to, click the mouse, to pull the trigger, to go in on trades. Like, how do you hold both of those things? Do you consciously think about that? You're just like, dude, this is the place I got to. I don't know. I can't explain it. Like,
I think it took, it probably took me a lot longer than it would take other competent people who pick up on things faster. I'm that guy. When I was in undergrad, I was that guy that would sit there and I would read the same paragraph 4 different times, and it'd be like, I don't know what this is trying to say, right? Or I'd just like forget, because the vocabulary, I'd start getting words that I wasn't familiar with, and my lazy ass didn't want to look up what the meaning of the word was, because it like brought me back to childhood trauma where I'd ask how to spell something or what the definition of something was, and my dad would be like, look it up. They'd be like, fuck, I don't want to look it up. Right?
Not gonna do that again.
So I was that guy that had to study 3 or 4 times harder than anybody else to still wind up with like a half a grade lower than the person in front of me that studied for 2 hours, right? Like that was how, for me, that's how this information and what I've learned is anchored so deeply into what I do and how I'm able to to teach it. So and not just teach it, but use it, right? It's application of what you've learned. It can take a long time to trust something that you've learned in an application process. You can see it in theory and be like, okay, yeah, that's right, I see that. But then to bring it to the point to where you actually have to click a mouse and put your money on the line and trust that is a very difficult step to take.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I mean, is there a point, I don't know if it's a single day or a trade you made or something like that, when you can remember that your confidence got to like a pretty critical level of just, you were like, I'm seeing results here. I know that what I'm doing works and works sustainably.
It all goes back to things that I learned, foundationally all those years ago. And then as time has gone on, like I said, I continually look for new either techniques or things that I haven't learned before. Am I able to recognize somebody like a perfect example of an adaptation that we've made recently that's really made a difference is the addition of anchoring volume weighted average price, anchored VWAPs, right? That's something that's actionable. It actually works, right? And when you use it in combination with some of the other techniques that we have, like reading and assessing the level 2 or AKA tape, did these things line up together in the same spot? And if they do, I know that I have a high level of probability of something working out. And if it doesn't, I know that I'm at a point that where if I'm wrong, a loss for me is going to be so small that I'm not bothered by it, right? Whereas before, you're looking for either, concrete types of areas for support and resistance without those other things is just like, peeing in the wind, right? And having it come back into your tent, right? It's just like,
right.
So there are things that if you learn how to piece together over time, you start to gain confidence because you actually are clicking in those spots and it's working, right? You start to trust it more and more.
Right. And then that just kind of snowballs, right? That just continues to build.
The longer you do it, the more things you recognize. And there are going to be times where you look at something and you are fooled, you are wrong. This is the market. That's what happens. There's no such thing as batting 1,000. It just doesn't exist, right?
Right.
So when you can accept those types of things, you start to recognize things over and over and over again. And you're like, oh, I recognize that. This is a place I can go. Right. So it's having all of those experiences is over, a period of time that you're able to piece together.
Do you think you react to losses differently now than you did, let's say, 10 years ago?
So this is gonna sound, and the short answer is yes. But
you can say that you don't lose that much now. You're allowed to say that if that's what you're about to say, because I know that's true.
We don't lose that much, and if we do, we immediately are able to assess and recognize why, and we either step away and say we're wrong and we're not in the right space today, or today it's too hard, or what we do is say, okay, made the mistake, things are going the other way, and they're going the other way in a big way, let's get on and get the other direction. So whatever loss that we take or losses that we take early are typically reversed and are green by the end of the day.
Yeah, got you. Okay, that's a good answer. That's a nice thing. How do you react to losses? I just don't really lose that much. It makes it way easier. Well, I mean, so when I know you're not in this kind of period right now. You've frankly been killing it, over the past couple of weeks. But nowadays, at kind of having arrived at this level that you're at, when you do feel like I'm off, I'm missing something, I'm out of sync with the market, I'm banging my head up against the wall. What's your process? What do you do? How do you adapt to that circumstance or sort of right yourself? Pencils
down, step away.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, that's what happened to me today. The morning was good, and then I had a trade late day, and I was off. I missed some things, and then the FedEx guy doesn't want to drive the truck up the driveway. The freaking
that driveway is pretty fucking intimidating. I've seen that driveway, and it's like a 9% grade. There's like a turn to it. I'm like, what are we doing here? What the fuck? Go on.
But I mean, I've got to take wifey to the airport. I've got, somebody ringing the doorbell because they left, their freaking socket set in the garage or whatever it is, right? Like the wheels, it was the universe was telling me to stop. Right. So I did. I just got in the room and I was like, guys, I'm punching out. I'll see you on the webinar. And that's how I walk away. There are going to be days, right, where I'll walk away red, but I'll walk away red knowing that if I sometimes in instances where I'm fighting or I'm trying to get out of that scenario, and it's just too hard, and it's like, fine, tomorrow's a different day and we'll come at it from a different angle tomorrow, or see if things change so that we can come at it tomorrow. I'm okay to let to let a red day happen and not be that upset by it, because I know that the next day is going to give me an opportunity to do something different, right? And those periods can stretch. Those periods can stretch for days or weeks, and that's what we work really hard to avoid. And that's kind of what we work at in my room to make sure that we really try to avoid that. And it's it can be challenging.
Yeah. yeah, I was just thinking about like, and you probably haven't been there in a bit, but when you do have a time where it's like, okay, you've had to do pencils down for many, many days in a row, and you're kind of, it's more on like a deeper level than like, oh, I just had an off day or I've had a couple off days. It's like something fundamentally is not working with my strategic approach to these markets right now. I mean, do you, when you hit that point, it's probably been a really long time since you've been there. Is it just like, I need to dial in on my process on really focusing on the fundamentals of what I know, for you tape or like what?
Yeah, I think I think just generally having for me it's all about what does the big picture look like, and then coming in to smaller and smaller time frames to see if an opportunity exists inside of that framework, right? It's concentric circles. So are all of those things aligned? For example, you can have a big picture where things are down, but you can have an up day, right? Knowing that the big picture says, okay, probability suggests that this move up has higher probability of being pushed back down, right? So understanding and recognizing those things, you may have 2, 3, 4 days in a row where things are not going the direction or the way that you think they should be. And, you just avoid you avoid those days. Now, you've got to be paying attention, but if you look at it and you're like, it's not working for me today, you have to be able to have the ability to kind of to sidestep it. And, I'll occupy my time with all kinds of things. Mostly for me, like the best way for me to stay out of my own head is exercise, right? Like if I get out and, if it's not working for me, I'll get out and I'll go burn 7 miles, right? 6, 7 miles. And then that like, boom, it takes that edge off, and I can settle, right? And it allows me to think clearly. I can put things out of my head, or I'll go play some tennis. You see the guitar behind me, like I'll do that. Like like the guitar is definitely like for shorter periods of time where nothing is happening and I need to get myself away from the screen so I don't start pressing buttons and letting my brain come up with stupid shit. That's a normal thing. So
right.
I've learned over time what types of things will keep me away from those types of activities.
Right. Yeah. You know how to manage yourself at this point. You know how to keep yourself out of that dark, that really dark place. I mean, I was going to ask you a question of like, well, so you got somebody who's facing this sort of staring out into the abyss and facing this moment of, what do I do? What I'm doing isn't working. What do I do? Can I do this? They're having this moment like, Ronch, what would be your words of advice for that person? But it kind of strikes me that that's not even like a fair question, because the answer is so dependent on where that person's at, right? I mean, in many
100%,
ways,
100%. I have no idea what's going on in that person's life at that moment in time.
right. Yeah. And you've essentially already answered it. I mean, because you've been through that, you've been in that place at sort of different depths at different stages in your career. And for you at some points, it was like, I don't have the skill sets that I need. I don't have the understanding of the markets that I need in order to be successful. Where can I go get that? Right. You were talking about mentorship and learning tape and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then for people who are, who are way more experienced and who have the successful strategy and a process that works, and it's just like something's off, they're not away. You were just speaking to that just now about what you do on sort of smaller increments of time, how you adapt to those, those challenges. So yeah. And
I mean, I'm not always calm, cool, and collected. I get frustrated just like everybody else, right? I do my best to stay calm, cool, and collected when I'm in here trading and clicking the mouse. But, like driving back from SFO to be on time for the webinar, there were some people that got fucking yelled at. That's just, I'm like, get out of the way, right? So,
right. You just don't take that out on your trading account, I would imagine, exactly. In the same way that a younger Ronch may have. Got you. Okay, I think I've got a couple questions that are going to bubble up, but I know we've got a ton of questions from people in the chat and in the Q&A section too. So I'll start taking some of those. I'll do another plug again for the master course to all of you who just came in or who missed it in the beginning. you go to sangalucci.com/MC, you can learn everything about the master course, Sangalucci Master Course. The next live session starts June 6th. $500 discount on that for the next 10 people who use it. If you use code MASTER500, and that goes for payment plans and for a single time payment. We always, want to help people out with payment plan option if going all in right now isn't available to you. So let's take some questions. What do we got? Let me pull this one up here. This is more of like kind of a tactical question. What will you be watching for a trend reverse big picture wise?
I mean, the technicals, here's the thing, is like no one discipline is a perfect system. Everything has faults, right? So you can do everything right and something happens, let's just say technicals. I know what to look for in technicals to help me make a decision if I think things are starting to turn. But what trumps that? News, right? I have no way of controlling an exogenous event. There's no way for me to foresee it. There's no way for me to know that it's coming, and I can do everything right, and some stupid headline can come out and completely ruin that. And I have to know that, and I have to be ready for it. But there are things that I look for from a technical standpoint that are going to show me indications that things could be changing. Some of those things would be, just very simply from a technical standpoint, one of the things that you look for early change would be like an 8 EMA crossing over the 21 EMA in a specific direction, whether that be, is up or down. Those things can signal a change in direction and or price. And then where are the other bigger moving averages? And we don't use those as places to trade from. We use them as things to see if we have direction and trend accurate. And if we do, we have other techniques that we use to zero in, right? So again, big picture, what does it look like? And then work our way into the smaller picture.
Ronch, one thing I was just thinking about when you were talking is like within our community, you have a well-earned reputation for being so good at managing risk, right? And being able to play both sides and using options very strategically to manage risk. I would imagine that has helped you stay out of the scary headspaces where you are in a sort of adapt or die place, right? Where your head is going to like that, like, oh my God, I'm facing obliteration. I'm facing annihilation on my account. Like, can I pull this off? But I realize that that's an assumption I'm making. I mean, as you have gotten more sophisticated in your use of options and more able to manage your risk really effectively, has that changed your experience of how you adapt to challenges in the market?
No, I think I'm good at recognizing what the environment is and applying the correct strategy for the environment. I don't go into the marketplace saying this is what I want to accomplish. I look at the market and I say this is what it's telling me, this is what it's giving. Do I have the correct strategy for that environment? So even though we have like like just for example, long term, I would like to be like Jay and just look at long-term opportunities. I know the conditions as of right now are not there. So what do? I play something short-term and stack the cash and wait until I have an opportunity to look at playing something longer term. And then when those conditions change, I'll move to that strategy, and I'll be able to do it because of my activity on the shorter term strategy that I'm applying to the environment that's allowing that activity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Hope it makes sense to everybody else, but if not, ask a question.
So because I have these different layers of how a portfolio works: long term, mid term, short term, being able to move your way through those gates is very important to be able to have success on a long-term basis. You can't just be, I'm just a long-term, I'm just a swing trader. You can, but you have to recognize the environment and when you can apply that technique to what it is that you want to do, right?
Yeah.
If you fight it, that's when you're just going to stand there and get into that negative self-feedback loop that makes you doubt yourself every day. And I that's not a place that I want to visit.
Said with so much certainty. I'm not going back there again. All right, don't you fucking take me back there again.
It's that, you know what? It's a polluted beach, man. The water's cold. You can't see your fucking feet when you get in the water. There's like, you know, there's hypodermic needles on, you know, next to your blanket. Like I'm not going to that beach. I'm staying away from that beach.
I've made promises. I'm not going back there. No, I mean, what you're saying makes total sense. For a trader, you know, take it to an extreme. For a trader who can only trade one type of market, one very specific type of market, then yes, they are very often faced with the circumstance of, oh my God, what I know how to do isn't working. What do I do? How do I get around this? And what you just articulated is, which is one of the reasons why you're such a valuable, you know, presence in, you know, in our organization, is that you know how to trade on so many different time frames and different market conditions. So you're able to take that sort of humble stance and say, like, whatever the market gives me, that's what I'm going to trade. And you kind of know you've got something for if it's scalping, fine, you'll scalp. If it's longer term positions and really building into those, fine, you can do that too, right? So I think that speaks to having tools in the toolkit, right? Which, as you just said, you really focused on accumulating.
I mean, this environment is going to change. The only thing that I don't know is when it will change, right?
Right.
That's I can't control that. But if I can recognize when it's starting to change, there's a lot of money to be made, right? A lot of money. And these types of pullbacks offer those types of opportunities for those people that prepare for them. And if you were prepared for them and you know how to inch back into those types of trades, people will go from having you know, a little, whether that's 5, 10, 25 grand. And that's when the opportunity for people to make life-changing money starts to open up.
Yep.
If lots of money can be made by patient, calm people. The key is, can you stay patient long enough, or are your circumstances driving you and your brain so crazy that you can't wait that time out?
Yeah.
Which is why you spend the time learning how to recognize when those opportunities start to present themselves.
Well said. We got a question about, it was early, very, very early on, about this crypto courses that come along with the master course. So someone said, no love for old master course students. There will be love for old master course students. These crypto courses are going to cost, you know, in the range of like $500, $750, and master course students are going to get, previous master course students are going to get a super discounted rate on those. But new master course students, as of this live session, are going to get access to those complimentary for free. To those of you who are wondering, like, what are you talking about, old students or whatever? Once you are a member of the master course, you are a lifetime member, right? So we have people who signed up 4 years ago and they keep coming back for free. Once you pay once, you're in as many times as you want. For some people who are part of our community, this is like the number one selling point, because they keep coming back over and over, and they see how Ronch taught options or his trading the post strategy in October of 2021, and then they do it again now, and then they did it in, you know, January of 2020. Like they learn something new every single time, new market conditions. How is somebody like Ronch teaching things differently, you know, reacting things differently? So usually every time we add, it changes all the time. These guys are changing, you know, changing what they're doing and adapting things. That's obviously a part of the market. Every time we add, we've added a ton of content, a ton of courses, a ton of new classes. Like this thing, it started out 8 classes, now it's 20. We haven't even really raised the price that much. Lucci was busting my balls today about how we should be charging 10 grand for this. This time next year, this thing might be $10,000. I'm not even kidding you. So if you are like sitting on your hands wondering, should I do it now or not? I can't make any guarantees that this thing is going to be under 5 figures, this time next year. So, but yeah, we keep on adding new classes to it. And usually people get grandfathered in, there's no extra cost. These crypto classes are a separate course, right? So it's a little bit of a different animal. If you guys have confusion about that, just hit us up. We'll explain it. We got some more. Okay, so how would you control risk for pre-market and after-hours trading since stop losses don't work there? From someone who trades small caps that can pop up and down in a huge percent with news catalysts and who doesn't want to be in front of the screens during those hours.
Don't be in the trade. I know that sounds like a super contrived answer, but in this environment, and I don't trade small caps, so I don't have enough experience there to be able to relate. But what I will say is that in this environment, being in anything long overnight is still carries a very high degree of risk. So I'm the only thing that I'm long right now is one of our leap plays, and it's Intel. And the thing is that this Intel position is paid for, and that we dive into that in the master course. But the Intel position is one where I'm basically riding for free. We had 2 others that we closed down. One of them was Netflix, right? And the only reason we closed that down is because the day of earnings, we were prepared and we bought protective puts against our long position. And we woke up in the morning and Netflix was down 115 points. So it was a success from a standpoint of how we did, but we didn't do it in the direction that we wanted to do it in. But that's why we have that type of a setup. So I would not be looking at I don't look at after hours activity as the real market. There's super low liquidity. There's all kinds of manipulation that happens there. You look at the ES just in the overnight, just to get an idea, a story of kind of what happened, but it's really difficult to apply it to what happens when the market actually opens and real trading begins. So I don't like being in this environment. I don't like being in anything overnight. It's not comfortable.
We got a question. When you blew up, and I assume this is referencing to the post 9/11 blow up. When you blew up, did you take a break? And if yes, how long? And what made you decide to come back?
Yeah, so the first blow up, I had to take a break because there wasn't any money left. So I was forced into taking a break. And that was probably, I would say, a couple of years until, because things bounced back, right? I mean, there were, it was like, all right, I'm taking money from my other job now, and I'm throwing it into the market. I'm buying an S&P 500 fund, and letting that build back up, right? So that was probably a couple of year break. When I went through my divorce after the financial crisis, it took me a long time, like 3-4 years. I don't remember the exact time now, because when you go through traumatic events, as time goes by, you like to put those details out of your brain because you don't want to accidentally go back to that beach with the hypodermic needles on it. So, I look at that, and I spent, I tell this story. I lived in a house. I was divorced. I lived in a house because I live in a really expensive area that was being rented, and I lived with people who were half my age. And the room that I had was above the garage. It was a funky ceiling shaped room. And, the nights that I didn't have with my kids, I just cried myself to sleep. That lasted for like 3 years. So, and it took me that long to save $5,000 just to get back into the game. So, they were rough, uncomfortable periods of time.
Yeah. And here he is now. You can do it, people. I mean, seriously, I think it's really important for people to hear.
You two can play guitar.
Yeah, you can. I will teach you how to play guitar. I think these days we talk about this all the time, but people are super isolated. They're on their own. This is very true for traders. A lot of traders don't know anybody else who does it really. Maybe they see people on social media and stuff, but they don't have anybody in their personal life and their network who's doing it. And they blow up an account or something happens and they're like, I'm a worthless piece of shit. And there's nobody there who's like, dude, you got this, reaching out a hand, pulling back up, being, helping them get back to it. So if we can do that for anybody, then we're doing something right.
One of our members, who a lot of people know, has been through, like personal stuff over the last 4 or 5 years. And I've seen this guy like, he'll come in, he does well. And then for whatever reason, personal reasons, he like takes time off, and then, he's got to like go pay bills and stuff like that. I've never seen somebody rebuild a small account so many times. Like the dude is just awesome at keeping himself together. And part of that is because you've got a community to come to and talk it out, right? Like it helps to be able to talk it out with other people who are in similar types of situations, and at least understand the day-to-day of what has to happen to find success in this line of work, because it's not easy and not everybody can do it.
Yeah, I mean, and anyone who's been in the master course knows that we get into this territory when we teach these courses, when we have classes that are dedicated to training psychology. But it's also just like when Ronch is teaching, when Lucci's teaching, they talk about the intersection of your personal life and trading, because anybody who's out there teaching you how to trade who isn't talking about what happens when your personal life T-bones your trading is completely missing the point, because that happens to everybody. This is part and parcel of what it takes to make it. How long is the course? Example, 2 weeks, and is it video lectures? They are live classes taught on Zoom. They start at 7:30 Eastern each night. They run from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights. I'd say about 60% of the people who sign up make those live classes. 40% of people are like, dude, I got kids, I got a job, I'm in a different time zone, doesn't work for me. Totally fine. You can watch the recordings. We have tons of people who just participate in the recordings, and then they're in the chats the next day, or they're talking to us in sort of one-on-one sessions, and they can fill in any gaps that they have. Like I said, the classes, it's about 20 classes of evening education, and then the 4 live tape reading sessions with Lucci, that's like about 24 classes, 3 classes a week. So you're running it's about like 6 to 7 weeks is typically how long it runs. And then somebody else asked, can you watch previous courses? Yes. We have people who sign up for this all the time. They don't wait for a live session. They sign up just when they decide to pull the trigger, they have the money or whatever, and they just dive into the recordings from the previous sessions. And then when they show up for the live session, they are like dialed in. The detailed, the level of question that they're asking, these guys can tell, Ron can tell right away, like, oh, you've been watching you've gone deep in the recordings, because they're not like, hey, what is trading the post? They're like, Ronch, on May 17th, when you did this and you bought this option at this price at this strike, and the VWAP was this, why were you doing, what was, it's like real specific. And that's great. That helps, man. That helps really pick things up faster.
I mean, when to your point, like when I started doing this and was, learning from Lucci how to read tape, and I told you the story about I was the kid that had to read the paragraph 6 times. I can't tell you how many countless hours I watched repeat on tape reading like that. So that's the beauty of it, is that it's there anytime you want it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Lucci will talk about, he talked about how when he first started trading, it took him like 6 months to really grasp just the bid and ask.
Yeah.
He was like, what it like, it like just sometimes it's just the core, most fundamental parts. It takes a long time for people to learn, but when you go deep into it and your brain has that comprehensive understanding, at the end of the day, tape is the bid and the ask, right? And Lucci's superpower is his ability to read tape. So don't beat yourself up if it's taking you a while to get something that took somebody else not that long to get.
I mean, I think it's next level to come close to being on the same, to acquire the same ability as he has. I mean,
Not a lot of people.
I can't match that. So
Yeah.
I've looked for other things, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of talk in the chat about people who are like, I'm going through this right now. I'm going through something similar. This is helping. And I will say, like, if you do not sign up for the master course, if you're looking for like, give me that one strategy so I can take things to the moon in the next, 3 months, and then I'm going to go buy my Lambo or whatever the hell, like some sort of lifestyle marketing guru is selling you, right? Like, if you want to learn actual skill sets, if you want to learn to actually trade, and you are in your head, you're saying, this is something I'm really committed to. This is something that I really want to do. I want to put the time and the effort into. It's not easy. We're never going to sugarcoat it for you and tell you that it's going to be easy. But we can teach you what you need to know in order to do this. So enough of that. I think we've hit it, man. Ronch, really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
Trotting out some of the skeletons from the closet, some of the horror stories. Hope you go have a tequila or something and wash it all down. And appreciate everybody for being here. We mixed up the schedule a little bit due to some scheduling conflicts. So Thursday was going to be our special guest who we were coming on for the series, but Lucci is coming on instead on Thursday. So it'll be me and Lucci on Thursday talking about this subject. That's going to be a great conversation. See you guys Thursday.
Awesome.
Ron, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you.